After my video on compromised antennas, I had a viewer request that I do the video on QRP tips. So for that viewer, here you go. Now QRP can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a bit challenging. I'm going to give you 10 tips to help you succeed with low power ham radio operating. Up next. Welcome to the House of Ham. I'm Bob WV7W. Today I'm going to give you 10 things that can help you with your low power operating. Also, stick around till the end for a bonus tip. Now, some of these tips are also covered in my POTA Success Tips video I did a while back, and if you're interested, you can click up above or in the description below. Before I dive into the tips, I want to take a moment and go over what QRP actually is, particularly for those that are new to ham radio. QRP, or low power, is defined as 5 watts or less for CW and digital modes, and 10 watts or less for phone modes such as sideband, AM, or FM. Now, these are not hard and fast rules, just what are widely accepted and usually the threshold for contests. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's dive into tip number 1. Know your propagation. Now, I talked about this one in my POTA tips, but it's an important foundational piece of knowledge that will help you to make some key decisions on how to operate. A great place to check this is in the QRZ homepage. They have this chart that shows the day and night propagations for all of the HF bands. Now, I said it before, this is not a go, no-go type of information, but will give you an idea of what you may be up against. It also may give you an idea of which bands to operate on, which leads us to the next tip. Choose the right bands. The bands you choose to operate on will be predicated on many things such as propagation, but also on what antennas you have available to you. Where are you hoping to reach? If you're looking at staying in close, you might want to go with the lower bands. If you want to reach out a bit further, move up in frequency. Now, don't think that this will solve all of your problems either. You must keep in mind things like the MUF, or maximum usable frequency. This is the highest HF frequency you can use for reliable comms and is usually predicated by the solar conditions. The band chart on QRZ will give you a basic idea of which bands are open, but nothing beats giving it a try. You could also look at the reverse beacon network. Even if you don't plan on using CW or digital, you'll get an idea of which bands folks are on and where. Another good indicator is the POTA website. There again, even if you aren't doing POTA, the bands these activators are using are a good indicator of which bands may work for you. Tip number 3, the mode. Now, the mode you're using really matters for QRP. Since you're operating with limited power, you want to pick a mode that uses it efficiently. CW and digital modes like FT8 are much easier to operate QRP than the phone modes like sideband, AM, and FM. Since CW and digital operate with a very small bandwidth, it means that your power is very concentrated and has more punch. Now, none of this is to say you can't operate QRP with sideband, but understand that it may be more challenging. Tip number 4. Just like in real estate, the 3 most important things are location, location, and location. I know this sounds like a bad joke, but there's a lot of truth to it. So what am I referring to when I say location? Well, one of the things is how dense of a ham population do you have within your operating footprint? Have you ever wondered how Thomas Witherspoon, K4SWL, gets so many QSOs with QRP? Well, other than he's very popular and sought after, he also is in a great part of the country with a lot of hams within easy reach. Now, out here in the Pacific Northwest, we have to work a bit harder as we don't have as many people in the easy reach zone. Now, I have California and Arizona that yield most of my POTA contacts, but other than that, it can be slim pickings. Now, one of the other things about your location is the terrain. Are you down in a valley with lots of tall terrain around you? If so, you might find it more difficult to get out there. What about vicinity to the ocean? If you follow salty Walt at all, you know that close proximity to salt water yields a lot of propagation benefits. there's also one more very helpful location thing that is so beneficial, and so much so that I'm giving it its own tip, and that's tip number 5, elevation. Elevation is almost like magic. The mountains around me aren't even that tall, but getting up an extra 1,000 feet has a huge impact on how well you get out. Just like being down in a valley or canyon can cause problems, getting up on top of a mountain can really help you. You don't have to be a soda goat to take advantage of this either. Even if you're not doing soda, the elevation can really help with your propagation. Tip number 6, select the proper antenna. When I say proper antenna, it really is going to depend on your situation. Keeping that in mind, go for the best antenna performance-wise that you can, given your operating environment and what you have in your arsenal. I have found in most cases that a vertical antenna works best for 20 meters and higher. Verticals give a nice low takeoff angle that will get you out there for DX and longer range within the US. For 30 and 40 meters, you'll likely need a loading coil, which will work but isn't as efficient as, say, an end fed or a dipole, so long as you can get them up high enough. Also avoid really short antennas if you can. Sometimes it isn't possible, but anything shorter than a quarter wave is going to be pretty lossy, which can impact your already limited power. Now, that being said, it never ceases to amaze me what I can manage with my KH1 and the whip antenna. But I also know that I'm not going to get out there as well as I would with a larger antenna. Tip number 7, set up antenna for success. Now, not only is having the right antenna for the job important, but also how you set it up matters. If you're using a dipole or even an end fed in a mostly horizontal configuration, you really want to get them up at least 1/2 wavelength above the ground. This isn't always possible, but understand that lower than that, much of your power is going to be going mostly straight up. Sometimes this may be desirable, but often not. Now, you may not be able to get that end fed up high enough at both ends, so maybe go with a vertical orientation if you have some tall trees and a throw line. Now, this might do well for you, but there's another option as well, and that's the sloper, which gives you some of the characteristics of both vertical and horizontal. Once again, do the best you can with what you have available to you. Finally, let's talk about ground. If you're using verticals and end feds, remember that the ground matters. With a vertical, you should use radials. These do not need to be tuned like a counterpoise unless they're elevated above the ground, and then they do. More shorter radials are often better than less long ones. If I'm doing 20 meters and up, I usually use 4 8 to 10 foot long radials. If I'm doing 40 meters, I will also throw out 4 more 16 footers. Now, there is a point of diminishing returns as well, so I wouldn't waste the time or money putting out, say, 100 radials unless you're setting up a home station, and even so, I only have 21 on my DX Commander. For end feds, a lot of hams think you don't need a counterpoise at all, but not using one means that your coax shield is actually acting as the counterpoise. Usually not a big issue for lower power, but even so, it will not be as efficient as an actual counterpoise wire. Tip number 8, hunt vices calling CQ. Now, unless you're activating a park or summit, and even sometimes if you are, you might have some luck by finding others that are calling CQ than trying to throw out your own. If the station calling has a large pileup, you may want to make note of the frequency and come back to it later. But I've had pretty good success with answering someone else calling CQ, even with QRP. Now, even doing POTA, I often will try other activators and get a few QSOs that way before calling CQ myself. Tip number 9, let others know you're a QRP operator. A lot of times a good operator at the other end will choose the QRP station over the higher power stations, particularly if they operate QRP from time to time themselves. Tip number 10, tune off the center frequency. Now, this is really only a tip for the CW crowd, but it really helps you get heard if you're trying to bust through a pileup. Your call will be much easier to pick out than all those stations on the same frequency, as they all just kind of blend together. Go say 50 to 100 hertz higher or lower than your center frequency, And if your radio has it, use XIT. Now, I would use that so that the other station you hear is on the frequency and not higher or lower yourself. If not, just shift your VFO and deal with it. Give this one a try next time you're out trying to get heard. It actually works quite well. Now, for those of you that have stuck around till the end, here is your bonus tip. Manage your expectations. Don't beat yourself up if you're not getting as many QSOs as you would with, say, a 100-watt rig. Know that it may take a bit longer to get that full activation, and that the other guy at the other end may not hear you very well. Take the challenge and enjoy taking a minimal rig out there and making contacts. Thanks for watching, and I hope this will help you with your QRP operating. If you have other tips, please share them below in the comments for others to see. Until next time, this is WV7W73.